My
Lost
name
the
is
sound.
Katie.
Okay.
My name is Katie Torback. I am the president of 5051 Veterans. Tonight we have Michael Kirwan, who is running in Florida District 4, which is my district. So I always enjoy getting to talk to people running in my district. And we'll go around the room and introduce ourselves. So I am a Jacksonville native. I went to Bishop Kenny, and I am an Army veteran. And I have been involved in veteran advocacy work for over a decade. Rory, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Rory, 5051 Vets Comms Director. I actually live in North Carolina. And then I will pass it over to TJ.
I'm TJ Demetrio, 5051's veteran member. I've been around since the beginning. I'm a physician, do a lot of education, do medical support for 5051. I was a former Clay County resident. I was in the Navy veteran, did quite a few years more than I probably would like at the air station. So I lived down in Fleming Island. I know the area quite well.
Wonderful.
And Cheryl.
Sorry, I couldn't figure out how to unmute. I'm having so many technical issues tonight. Okay, hi, I'm Cheryl Cochran Schaefer. I am originally from Kansas. I moved here to Jacksonville with my wife 9 years ago. I'm an Army veteran. I was in the Signal Corps, I was in communications, and I was invited to leave the Army for being gay because it was 1988 and the gays weren't allowed. I did get an honorable discharge, but it has still followed me. So it's one of those things that I have probably 10 years or so ago finally was able to kind of start talking about that, mostly when like DADT was repealed, and I was like, okay, now we're going to talk about it. So short story for me, I guess.
And Michael, introduce yourself.
Okay, well, thank you for having me on your show, and it's wonderful to be on a show with people that live in the district. And for those that aren't in the district, you have until July to find a home and change your registration. So lots of good places to reside. So like Katie, I'm a Jacksonville native. I grew up here, and my family's from here. And my wife and I, we've been married 37 years, and we have 2 sons, and they're grown and launched and on their own. And I practiced law for 37 years as well, and retired from my practice in September to launch this campaign. And look forward to chatting with you about the campaign and the issues that you're concerned about.
Can I ask a quick follow-up? What type of law?
Sure. I was a business lawyer. I worked for a national law firm and worked primarily in the area of securities, some mergers, acquisition work, and fund formation work.
Okay. Interesting. We'll have some more questions.
Sure.
And just so you know, like, so we 5051 Veterans is a nonpartisan group. And so we are made up of all political parties, including on this panel. And so we like to talk policy, right? We don't really care what party you are, as long as you put forth good policy. And that's what we're here for. So in light of today, all over national news right now, there was a woman shot dead in Minnesota. I have spent the day in chats discussing it with people around the country, people on the ground in Minnesota. And as veterans, the concern is the uptick in violence, the lack of ROE, rules of engagement. These people seem to have a severe lack of training. When you look through their handbook, we did a video on it. We did a deep dive into ICE training and how much they're paid and things of that nature. Fun fact, if you're not aware, ICE agents make more than most of the military structure, like on the enlisted side. And that's kind of a problem. So I guess when we worry about accountability as veterans, right? Like, so if you're elected to office, accountability matters for what is going on right now that we believe to be unconstitutional of what is happening in this country. So how would you define accountability in government? And what should happen when large institutions fail the people that they're supposed to protect? ICE is supposed to be protecting the country, and now they are roughing up citizens. Now we have one dead. We have deported veterans. We have a large swath of Gestapo-like individuals in our streets around the country and here in Jacksonville. And most people don't see it here locally. Since we have 287G agreements with local law enforcement and state law enforcement, every traffic stop turns into an ICE encounter here in our locality. So what does accountability look like to you?
Yeah, so Katie, you've got a lot packed into that question and comment there. And, you know, unfortunately, this is not the first shooting or the first death by ICE agents. And this also isn't the first headline to stop all of us, to make us pause and to discuss and ponder what's going on. You know, before this story, we're invading Greenland, possibly. Before that, it was Venezuela. Before that, it was the latest Epstein, and yada, yada. It just keeps on going. And so this is really why I'm running for Congress. The beginning of 2025, it was not in my plan. I was thinking, well, I'm going to practice law for another 5 years and continue to focus on my community activities. But it was one crazy executive order, one crazy policy after another in April and May that caused me to pause and say, what the heck is going on? I mean, this is not the America that we grew up with. This is not the America that we're working for. This is not the America we want our children and our grandchildren to inherit. This is not a path that leads to a brighter tomorrow. So that's why I decided to retire from my practice and launch this campaign, because I viewed the best way that I could contribute is not only voting in an election, but actually running for office and going to Congress to make a difference. And so on the accountability issues, there's massive failures across the board. We are having our government basically change before our eyes here. And so we've got a lot of work to do. We've got an executive office that is basically thumbing their nose at the Constitution and basically encouraging the executive office to not follow the Constitution, but follow the whims of one man who thinks he's a king. We've got a lot of work ahead of us, and it's not going to be easy. And the typical accountability for government when there's a wrongdoing, you know, you have an investigation, you have fact finding, you have the government, whatever the agency or the officer, actually admit the fault, admit the harm. There are damages that are then determined whether that's applicable or not. And then Congress or the legislative body applicable to whatever level of government we're talking about looks to see, is there reform? Is there a way to prevent future harm? Is there a way to make it better? How do we learn from this? Accountability is not only saying, hey, my bad, we made a mistake here, but how do we go forward? How do we improve? So there's lots of things that are boiled into that. ICE is completely out of control. You talked about how much we're paying ICE agents. The amount of money we're spending to recruit ICE agents, the number of ICE agents that we've hired is staggering, and we're still hiring. If you look at the detention facilities that are being built, it's mind-boggling. Why are we building detention facilities at the expense that we're incurring if we're going to deport everybody this year? So what's going to happen to these detention facilities after this year of deportations? Prisons, especially prisons run by for hire or by the private sector, will always find a motive to keep them filled. So this is not a good direction for the country to be going. On ICE, I'll just talk a few more minutes of why are they masked? We need to unmask these ICE agents, take the mask off. People act inhumanely when their identities are not known. If their face is shown, they'll think twice about being inhumane to their fellow citizens. The whole concept of these raids, these deportations is crazy. We've got people in the United States that have effectively been melded into our society. They are in our communities. They have paid taxes. They provide vital services. We need to recognize that they're here, they're part of our country, and we need to find a way to accept that and to lead them to citizenship. I do believe that we need to regulate the border. We need to have a good border policy and not let people in willy-nilly. We need to have controls over the border, but what we have now, we need to change how we're handling it. So I'll stop there, Katie. I know I rambled a lot there for you.
We have a TJ's been out for a minute, so if TJ has strange faces in what I'm about to say, it's because he hasn't been in the smoke pit in a while about things we have agreed on as a group. So one of the things that we would like to look at, or for our legislators to look at once they're elected, is abolishing DHS. Our premise behind it is because it was created after 9/11 with a very specific mission. And if you look at the overlap of government institutions that do the exact same work, and we are talking about waste of taxpayer money, why can we not abolish DHS and reallocate the funding? The thing with ICE is we know that they have a purpose. They have a stated purpose when they were created. The fact is that purpose has now been utilized as a weapon within the country. And so we believe, our group, we all agreed, except for TJ, he's been out for a few months, that we should abolish DHS and reallocate the funding and we do need customs enforcement agents. We understand that as veterans, we understand. But what's happening right now is not okay. And so what is your thoughts on that, on the abolishment of DHS?
Well, I think you've touched on that. The vital services that are under their purview need to be continued. I think it's a tragedy that we have to go through the airport screening, but it's understandable. This is unfortunately something that we've all agreed is the best way to keep air travel safe. Katie, I'm not really sure of what will accomplish other than simply eliminating the top level of administration and reshuffling some of the agencies there. But if you believe that there's some inefficiencies or some layers of management that could be eliminated, then yeah, that sounds fine. Are there particular branches or bureaus of DHS? We're talking about the Department of Homeland Security, right? So
Yes.
Anything in mind that you're thinking of should be eliminated?
All of them. Here's the reason. There is logic behind this. We just
Okay.
don't throw out policy like initiatives as a group, and we haven't talked it through. So when you look at ICE agents specifically, you also have FBI, you have U.S. Marshals, you have other types of law enforcement agencies within this country that do similar work. And often what happens is that intel is never shared amongst agencies. So therefore, you have to have your own agency to do your own work instead of just sharing intel kindly. And so that's one thing. TSA sounds great, but when you read through all of the TSA reports, they actually make you no more safe. It's just a falsity because they let through plenty of weapons. Like if you read through that report, like they don't really capture weapons too much. And so like we can reshuffle that org and that agency under another. We don't need a Department of Homeland Security. We have, a CIA, we have an NSA, we have a FBI, we have other agencies that some of the smaller departments within the bigger agency could be shuffled to.
Mhm.
And for example, like ICE, they just got like a massive pay raise. Why do they need $800 billion?
Yeah.
$800 billion is an extremely large amount of money. And as a fiscal conservative, I am not comfortable giving them $800 billion and then turning around and giving a white supremacist and the Secretary of Defense position $1 trillion on top of it. And so you get what I'm saying? Like we can reallocate that funding, and the agencies that need to be within the larger department can stay, but shift and then adjust fire as mission.
Yeah, Katie, that makes a lot of sense. You've explained it quite well, and hopefully, every congressional candidate that you have on your show will now take away a little bit more knowledge here, and hopefully, we'll get something like this adopted if we get elected. So, thank you.
I'm a policy nerd. I should warn you.
Okay.
I've spent 10 years immersed in policy, and so like there is a concern though, and then we'll go to like oversight and enforcement. But there is a concern that protecting institutions often comes at the expense of basic justice for individuals. So to protect larger institutions, there is like sacrifice justice sometimes.
True, but I'll jump in on that point. We are seeing institutions broken willy-nilly here. I mean, we've got a mindset in the current White House of, hey, we're all business people, we're all venture capitalists, we've got to break things to succeed, et cetera. Well, government's not a business, so let's be clear on that. We're not venture capitalists. Congress and the White House are not all VCs. They're governing leaders. Okay, we've got a government that's supposed to take care of people, provide a defense, provide utilities, provide basic services. We're not focused on the for-profit motive. So this concept of we need to break down and destroy our institutions every so often doesn't make sense. We need to reform. We can reform things. We can reform things more quickly and efficiently than maybe we have in the past. But reforming, modifying, making things better is far different than breaking and destroying, and what we're seeing going on now. So those are my 2 cents.
TJ or Cheryl, do you have any questions about ICE before I move forward? No.
I don't.
So one of our big topics of discussion within the military and veteran community is military sexual trauma. So that is sexual assault in the military. I am a survivor of military sexual trauma, and I have spent the last so many years dedicated to reform within the military. In 2020, Vanessa Guillen was murdered on Fort Hood Army Base in Texas. But she wasn't the first. Lavina Johnson, Natasha Poshen. We have an entire list of names that as survivors we honor through our fight. TJ can attest to this as a doctor. More men are sexually assaulted in the military than women. But women have always burdened this as our subject to try and fix because there is stigma attached to rape in the military still to this day. So they remain serious problems. In 2020, we had the Vanessa Guillen Act as something that we are pushing on a national level. What it did was certain reforms within the military justice system to help survivors. Pete Hegseth this year has rolled back every single inch that we have gained in the last 40 years when it comes to sexual assault in the military under the guise of DEI. Will you stand with survivors if you are elected to reintroduce either the Vanessa Guillen Act in its entirety again, or some form of it to reinstitute taking reporting out of the command's hands to a third-party investigation, to stop retaliation, to stop murder of men and women on military installations around the world?
Of course. Katie, you've explained it quite well. I don't know all the ins and outs of the legislation or the St. Guillen protocols that you outlined there, but of course, we need to protect the men and women in our armed services. We need to make sure the chain of command isn't covering up. We need to make sure there's accountability. We need to make sure that people are getting the proper treatment and care, and we should try to prevent future rapes and sexual assaults from occurring. We've got lots of things going on with veterans in the military that need to be improved. The VA offers wonderful health care, but it's not enough physicians, not enough staff, et cetera. The wait times are too long. The concept of privatizing the VA, I'm opposed to. I believe that vets have unique issues that privatizing it would water down the treatment of their special needs that only a medical force that's focused on their needs can really best serve. Pete Hegseth is a walking embarrassment. I mean, he has said so many horrible things and done so many things that he needs to go. So
we are actually, I'll bring that up later because I like keeping the same line of thought, or my ADHD is going to take us down strange paths. And so when we're talking about sexual assault in the military, I don't know if you have heard of the Ferris Doctrine. So anybody that is watching that does not understand what the Ferris Doctrine is, it was instituted in the 1950s in this country, where service members and federal workers cannot sue the federal government for negligence. In 2020, part of the Ferris Doctrine was overturned. So now veterans can sue the VA for medical negligence. How we did this, we were able to prove that the VA was hiring doctors that had lost their medical license in one state and then moved and were hired by the VA. So we were able to overturn that portion. The other portion of the Ferris Doctrine still stands to this day. As a matter of fact, it was just before the Supreme Court recently. Now they're trying to extend that protection to government contractors. We see a massive problem with this for a myriad of reasons, because it doesn't just affect sexual assault survivors. It also affects training accident survivors, that when there are training accidents on US soil and service members die, their families never really get to know what happened because the military closes rank, and due to the Ferris Doctrine, they never get to go through discovery. So, would you stand would you be opposed or stand with a piece of legislation to finally give service members and families the chance to hold the federal government culpable for negligence?
Well, Katie, the way you phrased that question, there can only be one answer there. So, of course, I would support giving military personnel and their families that right. So, people sacrifice a lot by agreeing to serve our country, and they shouldn't further sacrifice their health care. Healthcare on a battlefield is one thing, but healthcare back in the United States at a Navy base or what have you doesn't have the same constraints and pressures that a battlefield treatment would have. And so you could see some differentiation possibly on levels of care. But yeah.
I do know TJ would know a lot more about the health system, so we'll transition into that. You were talking earlier about services being unique to the veteran community, and I will agree with that. The VA healthcare system is a good system because it does have specialized healthcare that we need that we cannot find in the general population without using community care. I and most veterans have a very hard time with community care because when you think about it, the money is leaving the VA system and going into the private healthcare system in this country, which is then degrading our service because we no longer have the funding. As a matter of fact, I was in the hospital. I go to Lake City VA, myriad of reasons, but I go to the Lake City VA. And it is rural, as you know. As I walked into the emergency room, I was not planning on a long stay. I'm just getting patched up and driving myself home. I got admitted, where they then promptly asked me my blood type and let me know they had no mental health care staff on site, not a cardiologist, a pulmonologist, and a list of things. And I said, well, good thing I'm here for a kidney infection. And so when we talk about VA healthcare, I'm sure TJ can speak better on the subject, but there are problems within the VA healthcare system, just like you said, wait times. We have clocked 14, I believe it's 14 this in 2025. Veterans shot themselves in VA parking lots with the hellacious dumpster fire of a year it has been. It didn't even hit national news. And last time veterans started killing themselves in VA parking lots, guess what happened? Community care. And so, what are your thoughts on community care and trying to curb that back? Because like I just stated, community care was brought about for mental health care. That's why it was invented, point blank, period. And we have seen no reduction in the suicide rates in the veteran community since it was instituted. Not one. It has not changed.
So Katie, once again, you've packed a lot into that comment and question there. I had the good fortune of touring the VA clinics on Jefferson Street and up at River City recently. And, those were fine facilities from just as a person like myself walking through, getting a tour and seeing the number of people in there and talking with some people. They seemed to be pleased with the level of care. They did note that the wait times between doctor appointments was too long. So that was the common thread, but no one seemed unhappy with the level of service. And I didn't have a 4-star general standing beside me either to intimidate the people. So the feedback I thought was legit. Mental health is something that is underfunded. We need more mental health practitioners in the private sector as well as in the VA. It's a shortage that we have struggled with. It's a shortage in part because I think our society for so long wouldn't admit about the need to have mental health treatment and that mental health problems existed. I think the stigma around mental issues are thankfully receding. And so hopefully we'll see an uptick in funding and people willing to serve in that area. But we've got to increase the funding. Physicians and therapists and the mental health areas are underpaid compared to what their peers in the other areas are paid. And so that needs to be addressed. Part of mental health is also suicide prevention. And suicide prevention is astronomical for the VA community as well as for existing service members. I think it's like twice the national average of non-military citizens. Males in the Army, I think, are even higher. So the amount of suicides is truly despairing. That needs to be addressed. And I don't have a silver bullet for you on how mental health should be approached. I just know that the funding needs to be improved. And so hopefully by having more people, the wait times will be improved. One of my neighbors works with the Blue Star organization, and she was sharing how several of her clients have had long waits for mental health. And when there's a mental health crisis, when you're having suicidal thoughts, you need immediate treatment, and any delay is unacceptable. So.
Yeah, I know we have seen this year, past year, I keep forgetting, we're in a new year. It's 7 days in and a complete shit show. Last year, plenty of federal government jobs were cut at the VA. And most people don't understand what that means. Since you would be in Congress, you are at the purse strings and you can allocate funding for new jobs. But the problem is that when you cut government jobs, it is not an easy fix to just hire people. You have to create the job and the system and things of that nature. So it does take time. What here, I don't know if you are aware, Michael, here we have the Fire Watch. Florida is unique in that it was started here. And I have a friend, very close friend who works there. They have found success in nonprofits trying to cut through veteran suicide on a veteran to veteran approach. Suicide is something that we talk about quite often and openly in our space and mental health in general. One of the lesser known issues that's not discussed enough is something called moral injury. And it is, TJ, correct me if I'm wrong, it's like 10 years, maybe less, that it's come out.
Oh, it's been around since Vietnam, but I think it's become a more accepted and discussed topic for the last 10 to 15 years. And it's gotten outside of just the things that Vietnam veterans had to witness. It's now accepted that it is something that anybody can deal with.
And so when we're talking about allocating funding, if you look at the battlefield today, how we fight today's wars compared to Vietnam, Korea, Afghanistan, Iraq, although we did do a lot of drone warfare there as well. But if you look at today's battlefield, it is very, very different and will continue to be different as Palantir takes over. But I believe if you are to allocate funding, it's just a piece of advice. Not only allocate funding for PTSD, but do it for moral injury, TBI, CTE, all of these injuries, because there is a lot more research that needs to be done. A lot of the research funding was also cut in the past year when it comes to PTSD, and all of the research was deleted.
Yeah, it's again, there are so many things that have happened in the past year, and we're looking at 3 more years. So hopefully we'll take back control of the House. Hopefully we'll take back control of the Senate, and that can make a difference. The number of employees cut were not just unique to the VA. We had federal employees in so many different departments cut, and they were cut without a lot of thought. It was just sort of random acts. This whole Doge exercise was a huge mistake. And there's been so many instances where the government now has had to hire back people that they had fired. It's just staggering, the numbers, because by doing it in the manner they've done, we've lost expertise, we've lost institutional knowledge. Whether we'll be able to continue providing the same skills, the same services, the same level, who knows? Time will tell, but it's going to be a challenge. And that's something that these folks just didn't think about. And we look at all these vast cuts, these programs that have been terminated, and we start adding up the numbers, and the federal deficit continues to go up. We did not save anything. Whatever we saved, we have blown on ice in these new nation building exercises we're launching in Venezuela and elsewhere. So it is staggering to see the pain that's been inflicted for no good reason. Absolutely nothing good has come from these moves. So we've got a lot of work cut out for us, but we've got to start. We've got to start by getting elected. That's the key. It's a process. We got to follow a process. We got to rebuild, but we got to first get elected. We got to take control of the House, take control of the Senate.
Yeah, we're big on that. We just had our meeting about elections in general, because getting elected or electing good representation is what we advocate for. Because you don't have to be one party or the other. If you put forth good policy, that's good for all. That's how we look at it, right? As a nonpartisan group.
So let me jump in on that point. One of the problems that we have at the congressional level is they have stopped working. If you look at the past year, they scheduled 2 months of recess. Then with the government shutdown, the House basically was gone for 35, 38, 40 days. Even when they are scheduled to work, they're only in DC 3.5 days out of the week. We've got this concept that, they have to fly home to meet their constituents or they're going to be captured by the bureaucracy. We need Congress to do their job. To do their job, they've got to be in DC. Constituent service is important, okay? But just as we're communicating over the internet here, we can do that with our constituents as well. We can have town halls like this. I believe in town halls in person as well, okay? So I don't misinterpret me here, but we need Congress to be in DC, to be bonding, to working together. We'll have more bipartisanship if these folks are together more. It used to be congressmen lived up there full time. Their kids went to school together. Their spouses had parties together. They carpooled together, etc. Now there is no interaction. There is no socialization. And as a result, it's a lot easier to be a jerk to the other fellow across the aisle. And so we need to foster more relationships. We need to foster more time in DC doing legislation.
I'm a huge legislation person, and I follow legislation very closely, not only on the local and state level, but also on the national level. And we have a few issues within our government. Number one is, yes, they do not work. or write policy. Aaron Bean, for example, I was telling TJ because he hasn't lived here in a while. Aaron Bean is not inherently a horrible person, but he is a horrible legislator. He does not earmark any money for his district in any sort of budget bill. He has written himself and introduced himself 0 pieces of legislation. He has always been a co-sponsor on a bill, which I just think equates to laziness. And I would like a legislator to actually do their job that they are there for, which is to build a better world for us. I have small children. I would like a better world built for them within the veteran community. How it has worked like that in the veteran community. And what I mean by that is the World War II vets fought for better benefits. And then the Vietnam era fought for the benefits I have today, such as the post 9/11 bill, like our housing benefit is much better, our VAH, we have voc rehab. That's all done by the Vietnam era vets who have fixed legislation for us.
Mhm.
And so legislators do need to do their job. Talking about that and talking about across the aisle, right? Like, we're a nonpartisan group. We have some heated discussions sometimes about ideological differences because we have Republicans all the way to our lowly anarchists that are in the group. So we have ideological differences across the board, and we talk about a myriad of issues within our group. And we can normally come to a consensus on something that's middle of the road for everybody to agree on. And so how do you think, with identity politics being what it is today, right? Like, you have people on the local level. We'll talk about local level for a second, right? Like, I know some of our city council members personally. I've known them for years. And then they got elected and they went from kind, loving, decent human beings that I have known in the veteran advocacy space for over a decade to pretty fascist.
Are you hearing a sound?
No.
Okay, I'm sorry. Back. Okay.
Are you good? So how do you think that, like, if you get elected, right, and you go to Washington, how are you going to reach across the aisle? Because within our group, what binds us is our oath. We all took the same oath, and so we have that constant, hey, we're focusing on the Constitution, we're going to keep it real, like, let's refocus on the Constitution and our oath to it when we get too heated. So how do you plan on doing that in such a polarized environment? Because you see it here locally, and then you see it on the national level, and you definitively see it in Congress,
Yeah.
where every time people are voting party line pretty much. And so how do you think you would reach across the aisle to get good legislation passed?
Well, one of the things I'll say that we all have in common is Congress takes an oath as well. And we need to remind people of that. And, you know, I think we'll reach more bipartisanship if we're together more. Like I noted before, we need to work in DC more. We need to be in the same rooms more. We need to stop racing after the committee meetings are over to either call time to call people for asking for dollars, or racing to the rotunda to be interviewed on CNN or Fox News, et cetera. I think if we actually cut down on TV time, media time, interviews, we'll have better legislation, we'll have better congressmen, and the respect for the institution will go up. we need to have some rules as far as you can talk to members of the press from 5 to 7 or something like that. We need to limit the incessant TV interviews from the rotunda and people just trying to score points. We need congressmen to try to work together to bring benefits to their district. We went through a period of time where we thought, oh, that was terrible. That's awful to try to help your district, to help your constituents, to bring a government department or employees to your district. Well, that's what legislation is about. That's what Congress is about. And we need to figure out how to make the country better and how to make our constituents better. How do we make our district better? In CD4, we have a fairly high unemployment rate compared to the rest of the state, to the rest of the country, and to the rest of Duval. Western Duval County, northern Duval County has a lot of economic struggles. Nassau and Clay are much better off, but that portion of the district struggles economically, and we need to acknowledge that. We need to figure out how to bring jobs in, how to bring manufacturing back. We've got this wonderful port. Why don't we have more manufacturing around this port facility? It's a mystery to me. We've got great civilian workforce at NAS and at Cecil. We need to be figuring out how to complement and expand on those resources. And as your congressman, I hope to play a part in figuring that out. So I'll turn it back to you, Katie.
I think the history of Jacksonville is unique, right? So you're a native, I'm a native. And when you look at your district compared to John Rutherford's district,
Mm-hmm.
and you look at the lines where your district falls, it historically falls where redlining has fallen in Jacksonville. And so when we redistricted and there was a district seat lost, right? I think when you talk about economic opportunity and things of that nature, especially in your district, right? My district, I live on the north side. I live on the Nassau County line, but I am from the south side. So I grew up, born and raised in. I wasn't born here. That's why. I was born in Sumter County, but I was raised here, went to school here, all of that. And then I moved to the north side about 5 years ago.
Okay, I'm the flip. I was born in Huntsville, Alabama, and my parents moved here when I was 3 months old. So basically, same story. We lived on the north side in San Mateo. Okay. My grandparents lived at Dames Point. Were the first piling of the bridge on the north bank. That was where my grandparents' house was. And so then my parents, when I was in high school, moved to Arlington near Terry Parker. And then when my wife and I got married, we then bounced around the community. And so we live in Avondale now. So, but I've lived all over the county. So.
Yeah, so when we talk about like the history of Jacksonville is unique, right? And people not from here don't understand consolidation and what that was exactly, what the promises that were made during consolidation was to the Black community. That was the wealthiest community in the city. And so when you look at the economic disparities of today within Duval County, it is within those districts that promised consolidation. They consolidated, and then we developed Mandarin, we developed the beaches, we developed other parts of Duval County, and we left parts of your district specifically behind.
Yeah. Yeah, I will defend consolidation, and
I don't think it was a bad idea. Yeah. I'm not saying that, like, at all.
Because lately, no one's remembering what the facts were. Our public schools were lost accreditation. 3/4 of our elected county officials were under indictment, and taxes were supposedly out of control. So those were what prompted it. And if you look at what the white hats, the guys that were championing consolidation, were touting, the first line was tax efficiency. And it might have been tax efficiency, tax efficiency, tax efficiency, and then better schools. And so I don't believe in the grand conspiracy that we were trying to do some type of power shift, et cetera, in 67. So
that's not what I was getting at.
Yeah.
It wasn't a power
Yeah.
shift. I think consolidation on a grander scheme was an excellent idea, because when you look at the funding on how consolidation brought in more funding on a level, because we had like a county and the like land, and then we didn't have to do, so it made a lot of sense.
Yeah.
What I'm getting at is that there were promises made to the BIPOC community here in Jacksonville that have been broken since consolidation. And the reason I know this is, I hope my boss is not watching. I just built Revault High School. That is a promise of consolidation that finally came true for the Jacksonville community. I was on that project. I worked for the construction company. And so I'm glad to see that. But what I'm getting at is economic disparities, food insecurity, low income jobs of that nature within your district is predominantly within that red lined district, right?
Yeah.
And so what is your idea for like what sparked this conversation is when you said, let's bring industry back to Jacksonville. I don't know if you're aware, but in Brentwood, right off of 95 and Gulf Air, they put the city morgue with 3 smokestacks next to a school in a Black neighborhood. I was just out there for like the shame opening protest. I went out there to discuss it, because as someone that grew up on the south side, if that happened on the south side or the beaches or Mandarin, it would not have happened. Let's be honest, it would not have happened.
Right.
It was
I
in
agree.
a Black community. So I think when we talk about bringing industry back to our community, specifically within Jacksonville, there has to be a larger discussion on, like, within your district specifically, it would be a larger discussion on developing the west side of Jacksonville that has a lot of open land, and not putting industry within historically Black poor neighborhoods because we fuck them during consolidation.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think that's a good observation. I think the port facilities, Talleyrand is losing its vitality as things continue to build out at Blunt Island and Dames Point. So I think Talleyrand is an opportunity. But I agree with you. Another interesting point is what's going to happen with this jail. And so, you know, the jail is now 30 years old. So every time Jackson has a 30-year-old building, we got to knock it down and build a new one. So did anyone tell you when your 30-year mortgage is paid off on your house, you got to knock it down and build a new one? So so now they're talking about taking a jail as a footprint of, I don't know, 8 acres, something like that. And we got to replace it with 500 acres, 800 acres. I mean, the number of acres they're talking about is staggering. And of course, it's going in my district. It's going to go somewhere, maybe near the prison farm now. But guess what? We've got a large 1,000-acre residential community going in near there. So we'll see how all this plays out. So
out by that piece of land is also the National Cemetery.
Yeah, that's right.
And I will tell you right now, Jacksonville is one of the largest communities of veterans in the country.
Yep.
And so I will lead that protest, sir. You will not like me very much if a jail goes in by the National Cemetery and you're my congressman.
Yeah,
I will
well,
raise hell.
You know what? Fortunately, I'll be able to say it's not my circus there, or whatever the saying is. It's the local city hall issue.
I will
But
send you this recording.
yeah,
Be like, I told you.
I mean, is it staggering? I mean, 800 acres. I mean, that's the number they're talking about, right? That's just
Yes.
that's over a square mile. That what?
I work in the building industry. The RFP is out. The new jail is happening. It's not happening.
Oh yeah.
And so it is happening. It's just, where will it go? I know on a local level, council member Jimmy Peluso, who I went to high school with, we graduated the same year, has tried to put forth a resolution to ensure it does not go in a historically Black neighborhood in Jacksonville. And so, but that's, like you said, not your area, right? That's local politics, but
not my
I will
area,
tell you.
but still, as a citizen, I'm outraged to think it's going to be 800 acres. I mean, Katie, correct me if I'm wrong, or TJ or Cheryl, but isn't that the number? And they're throwing out just some vast amount of land. I mean, that is
a doctor who
incredible.
works in corrections, that is a ridiculously large facility. I mean, I'd love to be able to work in a facility that large, but I can't imagine Jacksonville requiring that much land.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I have thoughts on that, but you're the wrong politician to talk to.
Exactly. So
that issue.
What's common in this state is talk about the other levels of government and tell them what to do. And so maybe I should be in Tallahassee. That way I can really opine on what Duval should be doing. So.
But no, talking about government, right?
Yeah.
We have seen, like I said, I'm a policy nerd, so I unfortunately know what the Republican Party has been up to since the Civil Rights Act. And they have successfully built bottom-up legislation, and they won school boards, they won state houses, and they won Congress, then they won Senate, and then they won the Supreme Court, and then they won the presidency, the executive branch. We are huge purveyors of the Constitution as it's written. I am a constitutional conservative. I believe in the amendment process. But with this administration specifically, and what we've seen happen, not only with this administration at all, it's been a myriad of administrations, both sides of the aisle, who have gave the executive branch more and more power, and Congress has ceded more and more power to the executive branch. And for example, the Venezuelan situation, right? I saw everybody talking about the Congress War Powers Act. Didn't need it, right? Because post 9/11 gave you the authorization of military force. So until that's rescinded, the executive branch can pretty much do whatever they want with, for strikes around the world. Because deployment is specified time. It's policy nerd. I won't nerd out on you.
Right.
The point is that we have seen the executive branch gain a lot more power, right? Basically, Congress is supposed to write legislation, write law. But what has been happening, both sides of the aisle, is the executive branch is dictating executive orders, and then Congress is trying to codify the executive order. And that's not exactly how the Constitution is written at all. So when we talk about separation of powers, what's your idea? Because you said if you take over the House and the Senate, how would you correct that? That specifically is that we have seen kind of a melding of branches here lately.
Yeah, so I think going back to process is where I would start. And the process is Congress has the power of the purse, and the power of the purse requires you to do a budget on a timely basis. And so I think Congress needs to force themselves to produce a timely budget and not wait till September 30 to try to reach compromise, et cetera. And in the course of coming up with that budget, they need to link the authorization of those dollars to the spending of those dollars. It needs to be very clear that Rory Vogt and the Office of Management and Budget cannot willy-nilly reallocate the dollars that Congress has allocated. That the president has to spend the dollars for the different missions that Congress has authorized. He can't pool them and say, we're all going to put the money in this Venezuela takeover or whatever the harebrained idea he has that day. And when he doesn't follow that, we need to have the courts enforce the order and issue an injunction. And if the courts fail to do that, we need to take action against the OMB head, Rory Vogt. We need to move for him to be replaced. And so we just need to start there. And so I'll stop there, Katie. So.
We are members of the Impeachment Coalition. We have been for a while. I was in DC on 11/22 and marched in Washington. So the impeachment clause within the Constitution is something that we believe can actually be enacted within this administration. Specifics. We have specifics. Number one is Tom Homan. Tom Homan has clearly accepted bribe money, $50,000 specifically. And so would you commit to introducing or supporting articles of impeachment for Tom Homan specifically for the crime of bribery?
Well, I think you've identified the low-hanging fruit there. And so if an impeachment was to succeed fairly efficiently, that would be one to start with. But until we've got 60, or is it 2/3 of the Senate has to?
It's 2/3 in the 2/3 in the House and then 2/3 in the Senate.
Yeah, so we need 2/3 of the Senate to go along, and until we get the bipartisanship that we were hoping for, what's the point? If we don't know we got a Senate with an open mind, I'm not saying have it prearranged, but Mitch McConnell showed us that the Senate and the Congress is too far gone to have hope that we have open minds. Mitch McConnell did this country a huge injustice after January 6th when the second impeachment was available, and he failed to support it. And we've got the problems we have now because of McConnell's failure to impeach at that time. So until we know that we have a Senate that will have an open mind on these matters, I don't support wasting the time and energy pursuing impeachment. Once we do, well, then I think it's fair.
I would give you the other side of that argument.
Okay.
So I am a registered Republican. I have been my entire life.
Okay.
I grew up in a very conservative Catholic household. I went to Bishop Kenny, like I said. So I know from being in predominantly blue shade spaces, right? So I'm talking about from like Democrats to anarchists, shades of blue.
Okay.
And then you have people like myself who vote Democrat because my party sucks and we're full of, I don't know what the fuck's going on with my party today. No clue. So I vote Democrat.
You can change your registration between now and July. So,
man, I believe in the party tenets. I have written a lot of pieces on this, on like my belief system, but that's a whole other conversation. What I would like to see, right, of people getting elected into office this year, right? I understand the impeachment process. A lot of us do because TJ understands Constitution, like a lot of us in our group do, like from a whole standpoint. I want to see officials who take office actually fight back. Like, even if it's like Al Green, right? Like, he's introduced articles of impeachment against Donald Trump twice now. But if you look at the votes from the first time to the second time, the number of votes have increased.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And
Yeah.
so, although if you don't have it in the Senate, you're going to have constituents like myself that I want someone as angry as I am today. Like, what is going on right now? Like, I don't know what's going on. This is not the America I signed up for. It's not the America I fought for. It's not the America my friends died for. I'm a fifth generation veteran of this country, and I don't know what the fuck is going on. But I want my legislator to be just as angry and pissed off as I am. And when they go in there, do whatever they can. I am a gloves off type of person. And there are plenty of people within your district that are gloves off type of individuals. Like, you got rednecks out here that are pissed about the farmers. You got like activists out here who are planning protests. Like, there's one tomorrow for what happened like in Minnesota. Like, you have plenty of people that want to see fire and angry stuff. And one of the things that they know constitutionally can work is impeachment. Right? Like, even if it's just in the House, and yeah, even if it's just symbolic, they know that you actually care about these people being criminals, like in the administration.
Yeah. So, Katie, I want to push back a little bit on you here, in that
I love it.
Yeah, sound and fury. I get it. I get being pissed off, being angry. You want to break stuff. I get it.
No, I want to fix stuff. I don't want to break stuff.
Okay. Well, sound and fury. If you've got rage, sometimes things get broken. So, what do you accomplish? And it's like, ooh, we got this emotional release. It was cathartic to basically yell at the man, et cetera. I get it. But I believe we waste too much time and energy on this rage and fury, and we need to be focused on how do we make tomorrow better? How do we make good legislation? How do we make bipartisanship happen? How do we improve people in my district's ability to pay their bills, to put food on the table, to find a job for their son and daughter? And I just don't want us to waste 2 years or 3 years on endless impeachment investigations that we know won't result in a change. All it will do is distract Congress from doing what needs to be done. And so that's why I'm going to push back. As soon as we see the Senate has an open mind and an impeachment could go somewhere, okay, let's go down that path. But until we have some confidence, we need to accomplish stuff. We need to build. We need to fix. We need to make things better. And we've got enough sound and fury out there.
I can agree with that, right? Like, from a sentiment standpoint, but couldn't you say the same? Like, I could say the same thing about legislation, right? Is that you write legislation in the House and then it has to go to the Senate, and then the Senate has to approve it as well.
Yep.
And so without the bipartisanship, right? And I think there's a larger discussion, like within national chats that I'm in, about impeachment, is that a lot of the like activist groups around the country are pushing towards the impeach, remove, convict, rhetoric, because that's what they want to see done, right? Is we have a war criminal running the Secretary of Defense.
Yeah.
We have someone that took a bribe on the cabinet. We have a myriad of like actual criminals in the cabinet. And so, although legislation is great, I would love to see the criminals removed from office first, even though if we don't like have the Senate, and I get it, if you don't have that many votes in the Senate, then it is kind of a fruitless effort, and therefore it is a waste of time. But I think the larger discussion is if we get the Senate, will you vote for it?
Yeah, if we get the Senate, then we can consider actions that will lead to change. And the criminal activity, the corruption that we're seeing at all levels of DC is staggering. So, yes.
Let's talk about corruption.
Yeah.
Right. We're close affiliates with a group called Money Out of Politics. We think Citizens United is one of the worst things that happened to politics right now.
Yep.
Is that you have large corporations, you have PAC money involved, you have lobbyist money involved, and the voice of the common everyday voter is diluted to pretty much nothing because of the special interests that are involved in government. So one of the things that has been discussed is the overturning of Citizens United, or writing a specific piece of legislation to undo the harms done in Citizens United. Do you support the overturning of Citizens United and removing corporate funding from politics?
Of course. I'd like you to find me the person that is supportive of Citizens United, someone that can come on this show and say they support it. I mean, it's amazing. If you can't die on a battlefield, if you can't go behind bars and serve a jail sentence, why should an entity have the right to vote, or not vote, but to contribute to a political campaign? I mean, it seems that it's pretty fundamental that you can distinguish between the two. The fact that our Supreme Court could not is an embarrassment. It tells us volumes about that. When you're talking about amendments to the Constitution, with the rise of artificial intelligence, I think one of the first amendments that people should be thinking about is defining what's a person, so we know who's got the benefits of the Constitution. And entities, artificial creatures, no, there is a difference.
That's interesting, because we have talked about Section 2, Article 4 of the Constitution of constitutional amendments, and Section 5. So we would like to see a constitutional amendment put into place for term limits. Because you cannot put in term limits through policy, and most people don't understand this. There's a Supreme Court case that dictates that term limits are unconstitutional because the seat is determined by the voter. And so there's only two ways to rectify that idea on a grander scale, is either through a constitutional amendment, or the large parties such as the RNC, the DNC, the Libertarian Party and such could write it into their charter. And so we are here for constitutional amendments, some pretty radical ones, to be honest. But we also know that if you call for a convention of states to radically amend the Constitution outside the confines of the federal government, it could be used by either party to do good or bad. So we do think that the constitutional amendment process needs to be used sparingly and very thoughtfully.
I totally agree with that. Based upon the crazy nature of our political world now, I wouldn't trust a convention. I think going the amendment route makes the most sense, and it's the safest way to go for a country. On term limits, I think that makes sense. But then what is the right number of terms? And if we're going to do term limits, I would also suggest that Congress have the term for the House of Representatives changed from 2 years to 4 years. Not because I'm looking to serve a longer period of time, but because House of Representatives is constantly up for election. They are constantly in fundraising mode, constantly campaigning. They need to be in DC working on legislation. And the more we can take away reasons for them not to be in DC, the better off we'll be. And so I think a 4-year term would make sense for the House of Representatives.
Agree to that. I think what we settled on when we were talking about term limits, somebody will correct me in my group, I'm sure. Last time we discussed it, I think it was 10 years and 12 years, or maybe if you changed it to 4 years, then it would be 12 years and 12 years. Although we had Chris Bennett on from California 3 Saturday in Smoke Pit, and he talked about 20 years because I said a generation is, I think one generation is good enough to make laws. My problem, right, generally is I'm 38. I'm a millennial. I have no clue how old you are, and don't take offense to what I'm about to say.
Sure, that's fine.
Realize I'm a veteran and very direct, and I
Okay.
really don't care about your feelings. I'm in therapy for that, but I don't want old people writing policy that they don't have to live through, right? Is like, you don't have to live through bad policy. And I understand people can die tomorrow. I get that. I live in the veteran community.
Yeah.
We kill ourselves all the time, and people drop dead all the time in our community. I get it. But when you have like people who are in their 80s, like, who are you really writing policy for? Like, it's not for the generation.
So there's again a number of different paths we can take on this, and lots of issues there. The first is, I'm going to throw out, if the House has 4-year terms, I would propose 16 for the House and 18 for the Senate, 4 terms and 3 terms for the respective bodies. In my mind, that seems the right balance, because if you have it too short, then the legislatures really are captured by the bureaucrats. You need people with some institutional knowledge, some training, and then it's a question of leadership as well. You don't want to have something like the Florida House where everyone's battling for leadership on day one, and if you don't win leadership before the House session even starts in your first year, oh, what's the point? You might as well go home, blah, blah, blah. So that's just crazy. Just seeing some comment that flashed on the screen there. So far as the elderly statement, I think a lot of what we're seeing in this current administration, people can think like that. People can think, is the president doing this because he's only concerned about having his name in some legacy perpetuation, and he just wants today and tomorrow to be good? He doesn't care about next year and the years after. I mean, some people can jump to that conclusion. I think that's a reasonable conclusion. But I'll push back a little bit on your statement there, because I think you're suggesting I might be older than you are, and you'd be correct there. But I think I am concerned about this country, and it goes beyond me. It goes beyond my lifespan, because I've got children, and I would hope that even if I didn't have children, I'd be concerned about other people's children. And the fact that this country is special, this American experiment we launched, needs to be continued. So I'll stop there.
Yeah, it does. And I don't think that, like, because you're older than me, you don't like give a shit about the country. I do. And I know that, right? It's just from when you look from like a millennial standpoint, right? Because I do a lot of advocacy work within Duval County, and the largest voting population in Duval County are millennials.
Okay.
And
Turn out and vote and
actually,
vote the right way. So
actually within the entire country, the largest voting population is millennials right now, right? Is one of the things is that disconnection, right, that we feel from the older generations, and we've turned it into memes and nicknames and like all these fun, catchy things
yeah.
to entertain ourselves of the shit economy our parents have given us to live through, 9/11 and like 2 wars, 20 years worth of war. Because I was in high school when 9/11 happened, right? Like I was a freshman sitting in X mod at Bishop Kenny when 9/11 happened. And so my entire life has been like chaos. And so that's what I'm saying, is that we feel a somewhat like disconnection to the older generation, and then we see people like Nancy Pelosi, like Mitch McConnell, like all of these people in Congress that have sat in Congress for 30, 40 years, and we're like that disconnection from the elitist class
Yeah.
to today, right? Because if you look at the composition of Congress, only 2% of elected officials come from the common like class of individual. The rest of them come from money. And so that's that disconnection, is are we electing good people who are common, understand what's going on, like have a connection, aren't just wealthy and like bred for politics? Because that's what's happened in this country, is we have bred a class of individual that has become our politicians and write policy for the wealthy, and they have forgotten the common middle class. And yeah, so I just point of reference, and something we
Yeah.
talked
So
about.
another point of reference, Katie, is this breeding of politicians. Is it really just through our TV newsrooms and TV personalities? I mean, I think we've got this cult of TV stars that are now dominating our elected positions. And so that's a sad statement. I don't know about the breeding of politicians, but I get the point. I think what we need to be focused on is electing people that have the right skills, the right knowledge, the right understanding, and that includes empathy. That includes an appreciation of struggles that people of all generations go through. Everyone is entitled to their points of view, but I'm going to toot my horn for a second. I'm 62 years of age, and I have got so much experience that I don't care how bright a 22-year-old is, he doesn't have my experience and judgment because he hasn't lived my life. He hasn't had parents age and need to be taken care of and ultimately die. He hasn't had to raise children and deal with things that every child goes through. He hasn't had to build a business. He hasn't had to pay his bills, figure out homes, and now figure out retirement. He hasn't done a number of things. And as a result, I think I'm better capable of leading, better capable of making judgments than that 22-year-old. Say, well, that's what every 62-year-old says. But I think there's something to it.
I know I'm the youngest person sitting here, so
No, you're not.
oh no, Rory is younger than me.
I was like, I'm quite younger than you.
Yeah, you
but
are.
I also
Rory is our
grew up
youngest person
very
on this panel.
early.
Rory's just very quiet because they're watching a movie. He's moderating the comments.
Yeah, pretty much. But no,
I will
I
disagree.
somewhat disagree.
Okay.
As a young person, that's to be expected.
I will disagree just with some very specific points.
Okay.
Because I'm 38.
Hmm.
I own a small plumbing company here in Jacksonville, so I have built a business.
Yeah.
I am a mother. I am a veteran. And so I think the veteran community, right, specifically, it doesn't really fall into that. I like that experience. Like I'm older, so therefore I'm better qualified. I have more experience. I've had
No,
more.
I said 22-year-old. I don't think
Oh
many
yeah, but like
22-year-olds have a plumbing business. So I
yeah,
create my own straw man, Katie.
yeah,
So you
yeah.
can
No,
create
like
your straw
that's
man. I'll create mine. Okay.
That's true. You did say 22. But when you look at, I'll stick with 22. So I won't even go with me. I'll stick with 22. If you look at the last year,
Yeah.
specifically around the world, because as veterans, we follow geopolitics pretty
Uh-huh.
closely of what's happening. If you look at all of the uprisings around the world that happened this last year, it was done by Gen Alpha. It was 18 to 25-year-olds that overthrew their government. And so that's pretty inspiring. I am not advocating for a coup because I know we're live, and so I'm going to make that very clear. I am just saying, like the 18 to 25-year-olds in other countries have literally overthrown their governments and then elected new governments on Discord and had them set up within like 72 hours. So I wouldn't like discount the younger generation. I think they have a very different skill set than most people, even my age. Like, I don't understand a lot of it, but they have unique skill sets that do make them qualified in things like AI that you or I are
Totally agree. I totally agree. I
woefully
mean, if you have a
unqualified.
technology problem, call the 22-year-old and not call me. I totally agree with that. So
And if I could chime in here, Katie,
Yeah.
I do get where Michael's coming from, and I was just talking to my good friend today who is 42, and he, yeah, obviously, like he's got a 16-year-old daughter and runs his own business,
uh-huh.
is not a veteran, but he's had certain life experiences. His father is getting older, and to Michael's point, there are things that I think once we get, because just for full disclosure, I'm 59, so I'm real close there with Michael's age. But I've seen, like, my mom's getting older. Once you reach a certain point in your life, there are experiences that we've had, and I think it does bring like a certain sort of life wisdom. But what I think is the important point to focus on is, yeah, Gen Alpha, millennials, sure, you guys see things through a different lens, of course, which is why, in my opinion, it's super important if you have older legislators, and I'm not talking about the Nancy Pelosi's and the Mitch
Agreed.
McConnells.
Agreed.
I'm talking about the 60, because I personally think like from 50 to 70 is kind of the sweet spot to have a legislator. You've had enough life experience to know that shit's going to happen, but you're also not so old that you're losing your mind. I believe it's important, if you have a legislator that's between 50 and 70, if they're smart, they're going to listen to. For instance, if I were in Michael's place and I were running and I were to become a congressperson, Katie, you'd be my go-to. I would need your policy expertise. I would want people close to me that even if I don't agree with you on everything, I know you're going to know what you're talking about. And that's where I think it's important for our legislators to understand that you don't, in my opinion, you don't have to be knowledgeable about the technology, but are you comfortable with putting people around you or having people like in your sphere that you can reach out to when you're like, okay, I don't know about that. Let me go to this person that I do know, that I trust their opinion and what they can tell me. So that's kind of my thought on the age of legislators, and why I think, in my opinion, having older legislators is more of a benefit.
Yeah, I think that's well said, Cheryl. I think there's room. There's 435 seats in the House, so we can have a number of different ages represented. But I was just sort of defending that. I think there's a place for people like myself and my experience. If you look at my website, you'll see that I did address term limits, and like Tilly Fowler did when she was running for the House. She said 4 2-year terms, 8 years would be enough. And I agree with that. And so I intend to abide by that if I'm fortunate enough to get elected. And that means people would have to elect me multiple times. But I agree that if I'm in that position, I think 4 2-year terms would be sufficient for me, and time to turn it over to someone else.
Yeah, it's just like it's a conversation that we have in our chat sometimes, and in the smoke pit, when it's just veterans kicking around policy ideas and talking shit to each other, basically. I did see the comment that Rory put up that I think it was Girl Jordan. Yeah, Girl Jordan doesn't care who has more experience, who has more empathy and respect for other human beings and their rights. And that's what's important right now, is everybody's rights are under attack. We saw this week the Pentagon has decided to revisit the effectiveness of women in combat. We have also, I know all of us are like, oh God, because we have talked about it all week. So we have also seen the rollback of transgender service members within service. And Cheryl shared her story with you. She was pre-DADT. I was in for the changeover of DADT, and Rory was active duty when transgender service members were allowed in service. So we span a myriad of generations on this call when it comes to policy difference and rights of women, transgender service members, LGBT service members, and things of that nature. The rollback of DEI is what caused all of this nonsensical bullshit, in our opinion, number one. And the broader issue is that we have people creating policy within the Department of Defense that is showing, for some reason, they think white male dominate the fighting force around the world, and we're all super confused by that, and like kind of being like, strange. So I guess one of the things is like, what's your thought process on all of that, on all of the equity being rolled back for women, people of color, BIPOC community, transgender veteran, like, because it's not only
going backwards. I mean, you know, as a society, we went forward, and now we're trying to roll things back in time. I think we're harming ourselves. I mean, we ought to be taking advantage of the strengths of everyone and blending them to make the best possible defense force, best possible country that we have. To take a segment of our population and say, we don't want your service, we don't want your talents, is not helping. It's harming. And DEI really should be viewed as a way of getting the most out of everyone, to making sure that everyone feels how they can contribute, that their contributions are important, that they have a path forward. So that's my simplistic way of looking at this.
Yeah, I know when all of this started, our vice president, Lisa, is what we call a 404 vet. Her small piece of history as a woman in the Air Force was deleted from DoD websites. But we have tracked other things being deleted. It's not daily anymore because they've scrubbed what they wanted to scrub. But it's not only that, it's the deletion of history, and then you have other problems for transgender service members at the VA. And we were talking about VA healthcare earlier. You know, the VA healthcare system sometimes is a strange place. What I mean by that is HRT, so hormone replacement therapy. It is offered to women veterans. It is offered to male veterans, but it is no longer offered to transgender service members who have fulfilled their contract with the government. And so it's things like that that we would like to see fixed for our community, because those are our brothers and sisters that sign the same dotted line that I signed, and they deserve the same treatment.
Agreed.
Right. And there's still a lot of stigma within our community about transgender service members on active duty and the veteran community. I'm sure all of us on this panel have argued with fellow service members over that policy numerous times and loudly, because I have a personal opinion of, if you did not serve with openly gay or openly transgender service members, then you don't particularly get an opinion unless you were kicked out for being gay. Otherwise, like, you don't particularly get a say in the fight because you weren't in the foxhole with the person who was serving openly. And so that's just a personal opinion of mine on that subject. The military is an interesting and very unique place, and you have a very large constituency of veterans. So when we're talking about veteran services within the VA specifically, or the Veterans Benefits Administration is actually what I want to talk about, I think it was like 4 or 5 months ago now, you saw a Senate committee hearing in the Veterans Affairs Committee, and they were talking about veterans benefits, specifically in reference to there being immense fraud within the benefits administration of the VA. And if you look at the actual numbers, it is less than 0.01% fraud in the Veterans Benefits Administration. I know you probably don't nerd out, and so I'm going to set the scene for you.
You might be surprised, Katie.
I'm going to set the scene for you. There's a Senate hearing that contains the VFW National Commander, the American Legion National Commander, and other advocates in the space that work in veterans' disability benefits. And then a random guy who was brought there by Tommy Tuberville. And random gentleman said that PTSD is curable, and therefore all veterans that have PTSD are lying, and we are defrauding the government, all of us. So we have had a lot of concern about our benefits being brought up in the next budget cycle, right? Is that if you look at Project 2025, I don't know if you've read it, we've read it. The veteran section of Project 2025 is one that it has the least amount of information in it and how they want to restructure the government, and disability benefits is mentioned in there. So we do know it's coming. What do you think about, I know it's like, you're gonna be like, we're not gonna cut veterans benefits, but how do you think you could help protect veterans benefits from being cut? Because in that committee hearing specifically, what was being discussed was large swaths of disabilities, like that you could no longer claim as being one. Being means tested, number two. And one of the bigger issues is the PACT Act. If the PACT Act was fully funded, then a lot more people would claim benefits due to burn pits and Agent Orange and things of that nature. So we do worry about our benefits getting cut.
And you should, but in the ideal world, you shouldn't, because you lived up to your bargain. Now it's time for the country to live up to its bargain. Waste, fraud, and abuse is a hackneyed term that people use to simply indicate someone's getting some benefit that they disagree with. It doesn't mean there's actually fraud, waste, and abuse. We've talked about fraud, waste, and abuse as long as I can remember. And so if Congress is doing such a great job, why do we still find fraud, waste, and abuse? I don't know fraud, waste, and abuse angles in the VA as well as you guys do. I know the studies on the Medicare area, and you hear people rail about fraud, waste, and abuse as far as elderly people claiming benefits that they're not entitled to. And it's like, are you serious? The third-party studies out there show that of the fraud, waste, and abuse that can be agreed to, 2% is coming from the beneficiaries, 98% are coming from the providers. And typically it's, I'm not pointing fingers, TJ, but if you want to point them, that's fine. I was going to point them at the durable medical equipment people. I alluded to my parents. So here's my cell phone. And I made a mistake. When my parents were elderly and needing care, I switched everything to my phone. And so I get daily phone calls from durable medical equipment people saying, oh, we know your knees are hurting today, or your back is hurting. We've got a free brace that we'll send to you. Medicare will pay for it. It's like, no, I'm not. My father's passed away. And they'll say, well, don't you want it anyway? And it's like, no. And there are so much fraud going on with these providers in Medicare. It's huge. It's not the beneficiaries. It's the equipment providers. Stop it. We need to say, you cannot sell equipment to anybody over the phone. You need to have the physician write a referral. It needs to be done through the physician's office. It is crazy, the phone calls that I get. So I'll just share that.
I'm sure TJ, do you have some thoughts on that?
I mean, I could talk a lot about the DME. I'll probably go down too big of a rabbit hole of the healthcare system in general. I mean, you say that you got to see your doctor. I mean, the patients bring those papers into me, and it is a challenge when one of the major components of how I provide healthcare is my Press Ganey score. And if I'm not making patients happy, then the large corporation that owns me and pays me is going to be dissatisfied and not give me my bonus and possibly fire me. And so we've incentivized this system, right, for me to then sign off on this paper whenever a patient brings it. I also teach residents, a big part of that. One of the big things I like to teach residents is how to say no to a patient. You don't have to give them everything they want. But I'm an exception, unfortunately, because we've incentivized the healthcare system the way it is, and we need everything and the best that it is. And again, I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole, but we've incentivized that system to give as much as we can to our patients, to give them all of the braces, to give them all of the diabetic test strips and all of the diapers. And so it is the providers, because that's what we've done. I think I kind of lead into some VA questions, but yeah, it's a challenge.
Yeah.
I know that I unfortunately did not ever have to take part in the private healthcare system until recently. My mom fell and broke her hip. Like you talked about taking care of aging parents. My father passed away in 2020, and I took care of him as he passed away. And my parents were married for 42 years before my dad passed away. But my mom fell and broke her hip this past year, and yeah, the private healthcare system sucks. Like, having to deal with that, like. I've never had to deal with it, and I tell civilians this, and they don't really understand. But when I get sick, I just like show up to the VA, and I'm like, I'm sick, and they fix me. I don't get a bill. I
Yeah.
I go to the pharmacy on site and pick up whatever I need. So yeah, I don't understand the private healthcare system, but I do know this is that I have friends today I was talking to earlier that live in this state, not your district, but in the state of Florida, that cannot afford to go to the doctor. Like they just can't. The quote they got, they have no insurance. The quote they got was close to $7,000 for whatever it is they need done. And that's outrageous in a country with such immense wealth. Because I have personal friends that don't have health insurance that could die because they can't afford to go get fixed. While I know I signed on the dotted line for healthcare. I understand that, and I understand the difference in that. But I do know that something needs to be done for civilians that have to do that or sacrifice food to go get medicine, like because that's happening regularly within the elderly community. Is people like elderly Americans on fixed incomes are deciding, like, do I pay my electric bill or do I go get my medicine? And I I find that so abhorrent, that we as a society have collectively been like, we're cool with that. Right? Like I find that so
Yeah.
strange.
I don't think anyone's going to disagree with you on that, Katie. So,
Yeah, it's just like, oh, that's weird. So I know we are coming to the end. We do ask some pretty weirdly controversial, we don't find it controversial, some people find it controversial, questions. Is we'll ask those and then we close out in a very weird manner, and you get to be a part of it, and it's going to be fun.
great.
So as we said earlier, we are not huge fans of money in politics. So one of the larger discussions we have been having is surrounding Israel. Is we think that AIPAC has way too much influence in our politics today, that they should register as a foreign lobby, number one. Foreign governments can lobby the United States government. It's completely legal. They just have to register as foreign lobby. So number one, would you agree that AIPAC should register as foreign lobby? And number two, would you accept money from AIPAC?
So, on the first question, I haven't really studied the rules about who needs to register. I mean, the way you described it, it sounds logical, Katie. So I would say yes, but again, don't hold me to it. AIPAC, whoever you are out there, let me see the rules. But do I plan to take money from AIPAC? I'm not planning to take money from AIPAC. There is no plan to even talk to AIPAC.
Yeah, so AIPAC is a foreign lobby. It is what it is.
Mhm.
And they are the only country in the world that has a foreign lobby that lobbies for their best interest as the country of Israel, that is not registered as foreign lobby. And so it's one of the bigger indiscretions. And the follow-up on the Israel situation is, as a group, we don't support genocide. Like we said, never again We meant that shit like my grandfather fought in World War II and liberated Dachau. So when you see what Israel is doing to Palestine and continues to do so, like October 7th was not the beginning of something. We have seen the territorial expansion since the end of World War II and Israel's creation within the West Bank. And when you look at territorial maps and things of that nature, and then you see the complete desecration of Gaza, the flattening of an entire society. And we have supported the end of arming Israel, like ending all arms to Israel. We think that we have supported them. They have the Iron Dome. They have enough defenses that they should be able to stand on their own 2 feet without further money support from us. What's your thoughts on that?
I think the Hamas attack on Israel was inexcusable, even based on all the prior history leading up to it. I think Hamas has lost their right to be a governing party. I think I'm fine with Hamas no longer existing. But with that said, the Palestinian people need to be recognized. They need to be treated fairly. They and the Jewish population of Israel have to come to some type of reconciliation and an equal peace. A secular state always has some appeal, but that seems too far of a stretch. So a two-party state or two-state solution is what appears to be the most practical. The paving of Gaza that's currently happening, the demolition of everything in Gaza, is so disproportionate. They've stepped over so many lines there. I think we've lost control of how our aid should be used, and I agree with you. It needs to be reined in. I view Israel still as a supporter and an ally, so we can't simply turn our back to them, but they need to be much more reasonable, and we need a peace. How we're going to get a peace, people have been trying for a long time, but we've got 7.5 million Palestinians and 7.5 million Jews. It's an equal number there, and so somehow we've got to come up with some type of reconciliation. I don't know exactly how we're going to get the parties to the table. I think Bill Clinton came close, and for whatever reason, the parties couldn't agree at that time back in the 90s. My sense is we're not as close as we were in the 90s. So it's not exactly a very promising situation that we've got. I think it's really troubling how we now have people in this country that are viewing any type of statement against the government of Israel as anti-Semitic. I think that's incorrect. At the same time, it's troubling to see the rise of anti-Semitism and talk about Nazism and talks about Jewish cabals and everything else. So this is not good. It's not good in the Middle East. It's not good here in the United States. We need to roll the clock back if that was possible, but we can't. So how do we go forward? And I think we've got to go forward by basically being tougher on Netanyahu and going down the path that you were suggesting, Katie.
Yeah, I think the strongest path and the necessary path is to stop arming Israel. number one. And then number two, there is a lot of policy behind the two-state solution. And I'm, for everyone watching, I'm going to explain why the US sucks for 2 seconds on this issue and why we've continued to suck for 2 seconds on this issue. So when we talk about statehood for Palestine, every time that the statehood for Palestine comes up in the UN, the people that vote against it is us, Israel, and smaller micronations that we pay through like projects and stuff we fund, like Micronesia and very small nations. So we and Israel have successfully blocked Palestine becoming a state. Why? Because we sit on the UN Security Council and we get a veto on anybody that applies for statehood. And we have successfully used that veto every time it has come up as a solution. And so we have talked about this extensively, and Palestine needs, we believe, to become a state. That is the only way forward, is we stop arming Israel and we accept the Palestinian state. And then we can talk about it. And on the Hamas issue, when you look at the governance of Hamas and you look at the age, right, of the people within Palestine, most of the people that are alive in Palestine today did not vote in Hamas as their leadership on a world stage, right? Like when you talk about political power, it's just not how it works. And so I think that we recognize, in our group, we all agreed on recognizing Palestine as a state, number one, and then letting them form their own government, because the obvious meddling within the affairs of the Palestinian people for generations has done absolutely no good, right? And now they have nothing. And as a matter of fact, I put in our chat, and Cheryl and Rory will probably remember this. I was up early one morning because I don't sleep well, and I was on TikTok. And when we started our lives, I didn't realize that we made money, and I freaked out because we don't accept money at all for what we do. And so I got up early one morning and found a Palestinian family, and then like gave them all of our money and let everybody know, like all of the $5 we had made doing lives, I had given them one heart at a time in gift. But that is like our stance, like just 50-51 veterans, is that we do believe that Israel should no longer be armed, given the fact that they are committing genocide, but also recognizing the fact that that's not the only genocide being committed in the world today that we need to talk about on a world stage, such as like Sudan and the Uyghur population. And there are a myriad of genocides happening across the globe that need to be discussed. But yeah, no, on Israel, that's our stance. You can take it or leave it, but we don't think we should arm them anymore or give them any more money. And we also think that Palestine should become a state. So take it or leave it. But we will close on that, because that is a hard line that we decided to take as a group. Just because, you know, genocide, when we talk about genocide, right? The world has recognized that a genocide is happening in Gaza, and we, as the Americans, have paid for it with our tax money. And so we are complicit in a genocide, when in the last time this happened, Rwanda, we all stood up and went into Rwanda. I was alive for Rwanda. That's in my lifetime. And so we stood up, the world stood up and went into Rwanda and stopped the genocide. A lot of people died within that time frame of getting the world together. But we in 2025 watched a genocide on TikTok, and we all just went, that sucks. and continue to send our tax money and bomb and kill children and women and decimate their entire infrastructure. And so we just don't think that should happen anymore with their tax money. Yeah. But we will wrap up. So, number one, tell us about your website. What's your next campaign thing? How do we donate to you? How do we volunteer? Because we put this, like when I sent this out, I put it in like the Florida chat, the veterans chat, the electoral chat, like it went a bunch of places. So tell us how to get involved, where to volunteer, how to donate, you're like what you doing.
Well, thank you so much, Katie. Well, first, thank you for letting me come on the show. This has been a fun 2 hours. I've enjoyed the experience, and these are good questions. These are questions that hopefully every candidate gets asked, and people hear the answers and help inform their voting decisions there. I'm excited about the race. I think we've got a lot of good things happening. A lot of good support in the district. So I'm really confident that we're going to win and flip this seat. Our website, I think, can help guide you regarding donations and how to volunteer. It's votekirwan.com. That's KIRWAN if you can't read the name under my face there. But there's a volunteer page there. And there's also a donate page, and to the extent people can donate financially, that's great. That's super appreciated. I know not everyone can, but we need everyone's help in some capacity, whether it's taking a yard sign, we'll have one delivered to your home, whether it's participating in one of our call bank exercises. We're currently call banking, reminding people about if they're voting by mail, they need to re-up for it. If they're independents, we'd encourage them to consider switching and registering as a Democrat. We are basically, we have volunteers that'll be marching in the MLK parade coming up. We've got
we'll see you there.
Okay, great. We've got a couple of music festivals coming up. That'll be fun. One's going to be a jazz event at Riverside Baptist Church coming up in March. So we've got some fun things that aren't typical campaign type events. Some community building exercises to go along with the campaign. So we're excited about bringing people in that weren't always focused on politics, that they now realize how important it is and how races do matter, and this election in particular matters. So reach out, and I respond to people's questions and comments. So if people have a question about the campaign, my positions, I'm happy to address it via email, a phone call, or even over a cup of coffee. So lots of meetings going on. Lots of groups are inviting me to attend and speak. So I'm really encouraged by the interest of the community. So, and again, Katie and Cheryl and TJ and Rory, thank you so much.
Yeah, we're glad to have you, especially because you're in my district. And so, no, we are glad that you came on, because we did have someone that you're competing against on, and we are super fair. And so we will probably have LJ Holloway on as well, because we had Brett Robinson on and then you. And so we're all about platforming anybody that wants to talk to the veteran community specifically and get our insights and what we think about certain things and what we need, right? Is because we as veterans are tired of congressional people and senators using us as photo ops, but then it's time to actually help us there is no help to be had, right? And so, yeah, no, thank you for coming on. I have enjoyed this conversation. One of the comments that came across, because I took notes, Rory, so that you didn't have to keep putting it up, is girl Jordan, if you're still watching, there is a national call to action that is going on right now, put on across the country by different 5051 chapters, by different organizations across the country in rapid response to what happened today. And everyone is doing something, my friends. Tomorrow in Jacksonville, Florida. Yep. Tomorrow in Jacksonville, Florida, JIRA, the Jacksonville Immigrant Rights Alliance, is putting on a rapid response protest at 5 p.m. Off of Hogan at the Federal Building. So if you're in Duval County and you want to make it out, 5 p.m. tomorrow, being hosted by the Jacksonville Immigrant Rights Alliance. In rapid response, but I have seen rapid responses going off across the country, especially across the state today. Orlando mobilized, Tampa mobilized today, Miami mobilized today. Tallahassee has a candlelight vigil going on tomorrow. So there are actions across the country. Please get tied into your local 5051 group and your state chapters. I'm sure there are rapid responses going on across the country. And so get tied in, and Michael, you are welcome to come. We're speaking, we got invited to speak. It's not our protest, but you're welcome to come yell about ICE shooting a woman in the face. That's the line in the sand, I'm pretty sure, for most of us. So we close in a very weird way. And so we do a safety brief every time we do one of these. A safety brief for those watching that are civilians every Friday before close of business. Lower enlisted folk, we get a safety brief from our commander or our first sergeant of how not to be degenerates over the weekend and end up in jail. And the officer over there is, that's exactly what's happening. And so we start out the same way every time. Do not beat your spouse, your child, or your dog. Drink water. Take care of your mental health. That means taking your meds as prescribed and going to talk to your mental health professional. Please eat stuff. Eat normal stuff, right? I know we have very bad eating habits, so, okay. Reach out before you crash out. Do not drink and drive. If you cannot afford an Uber, I am personally 13 years sober. Reach out to our page through we're across every single social media. Reach out to our page and I will personally pay for your Uber home. Also, make sure that you are going out and touching grass. You are spending time with the people that like you love. It doesn't have to be your family, but get out of the activism space and go do normal shit besides being wrapped in activism. TJ exited for a few months, and we all need to get out of this space. It will consume you. Do not buy zoo animals off the black market and then try to donate them to local zoos. It doesn't go as well as you would think. Do not conduct live fire exercises in housing developments. Also does not go as well as you think. TJ is shaking his hand over there. But in all seriousness, as veterans, we took an oath to the Constitution and to the people of this country. And so if you are out in the streets doing what we do and you are out there protesting, our job is to protect the most vulnerable around us. That's what we took an oath to. And so please abide by that. Look out for those around you, especially the vulnerable populations. That's our job, is that as we see an uptick in the government becoming more violent towards protesters and people out in the streets, that's our duty. is to go protect them. So please do that. And that's it. That's our safety brief. Did I miss anything, anybody? TJ, you got any?
I close it out with the standard. Don't add to the population. Don't subtract from the population. Don't get arrested. And if you do get arrested, assert dominance rapidly.
We changed the don't add or subtract to the population unless you mean it. Yeah, we added the unless you mean it to that one. But yeah, so don't add or subtract to the population unless you mean it.
Also, get plenty of sleep.
Yes, get plenty of sleep. And Michael, do you have any?
These are all good points to take in. I had not thought about zoo animals before, and I appreciate that. I'll add it to my list. So I've got lots of notes I always take, and that'll be my takeaway, zoo animals. So that's good. Appreciate that.
Everything gets added to the safety brief because it's happened.
I am sure.
Make sure to change your socks.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a big one too. We're really big. We're feet people because we're predominantly Army on this
People, because that's. I mean, we don't kink shame, but we're not feet people. All right.
All right. That is
Have extra pairs of socks.
Yeah, that is an excellent way to close. But no, Michael, thank you for coming on. I hope to see you in the wild. I will look at your website and try and meet you face to face because one of the things that we do at 5051 Vets is talk about policy and things like that. And so I
welcome a further conversation. So cup of coffee sometime and more talk would be wonderful.
Absolutely. And I'm sure Cheryl would love to come along and publish some more. We have more veterans and 5051 vets that are Jacksonville natives. They're
Wonderful.
probably watching. So yeah, next up on Saturday, I have no clue who we have on because I suck at writing things down in places I remember. Rory, do you know who is on Saturday?
Give me just a second.
I don't remember.
Anna, because I don't know off the top of my head, so I'm looking.
Me neither. Hold on. I think I sent you a picture, didn't I?
Demi?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, that is true. So this Saturday, we have Demi Palachuk, who is the National Guard member out of Illinois, who refused orders. And now she is running for Congress in Illinois. And so we will have Demi on Saturday. Look forward to that conversation. I met her face-to-face in Washington on 11/22. But yeah, Michael, I hope we meet in the wild somewhere and we can chat more about veteran-specific issues and stuff that we work on within the veteran community specifically. So thank you for coming on and dedicating over 2 hours. You didn't break the record. We had a guy, I think was like 3.5, 4 hours with us. So
I'll leave him with the record. So
yeah, but no, I hope everybody has a lovely night. And thank you. No, I truly thank you for your time.
Well, thank you all. I enjoyed it. Okay.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
All right.